Welcome back to art class. This time we're going to be doing it's a 2-week project as we did before. This project is going to be for fall itself. Last project was obviously a little bit more specific to a couple of days, but this one's going to work more for the entire fall season. And we're going to focus on how to do some highlights and how to do some shadows with colored pencils, a piece of paper, and a pencil. And we're going to be focusing on how to do highlights and shadows using mixing of colors. Now, if you don't know, a highlight is the bright reflection of light. Okay? So if you had a car and the sun is shining on it, that bright shininess that comes back at your eyes, that is considered a highlight. Okay? And most of us clearly know what shadows are. They're the dark areas that an object blocks light from showing and makes an area darker. Okay? So our picture is going to be focused for fall, and we're going to use a pumpkin. Pumpkin simply because it's a very common item this year, around this time of year, and it's one that I think many students can improve on with their drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick sketch of a typical way I see people do pumpkins. Basically, they'll do something like this. Okay, like that. And honestly, that's not a bad way to do a pumpkin. But I think we can take it a few steps further and make it look a little bit more realistic, and especially when we add the shadow and the highlights. So we're going to go past this kind of thing. So I'm going to put that off to the side here. We're going to have a new piece of paper. Okay, so here's my piece of paper. I do want us to have it go up and down. I don't do very many portrait style pictures, so I want to try this one as a portrait style. When you're drawing this, it's going to need to be big. I want the pumpkin that we're drawing to take up most, if not all, the space. If it goes off on the sides or a little bit on the top, that is okay, because honestly, most regular pictures, a lot of the image will actually hit the edge or go off the edge. Okay. For our new version or way to draw a pumpkin, we're actually going to start with the center first and work our way out from the side. And you're going to need a kind of rounded, this is going to be like a cross between an oval and a rectangle. Now I'm going to kind of sketch this because that's just how I draw this type of shape. And then I'll go back in and clean up my edges and make it more solid. I got this a little too high. Gotta have room for my stem, so. Bring it down just a little bit further. There we go. Think Plankton from SpongeBob. That is the kind of shape you're looking for, minus his eye. Okay, so it looks pretty good. I can touch up my submersion. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to start the side. Now, the side is going to be rounded. It's actually going to start here. It doesn't start right next to it. It starts a little bit up. It's curved, and it goes like a little bump here. The next one does the same thing. They're not going to be perfectly straight. They should be slightly curved. Like that. The next one's going to start here, a little bit higher. And this one, mine's going to hit the edge just barely, and that's okay. Like that, and I'm going to have This one I think is just going to fit right in there. Like that. Then the base of a stem is going to be pretty thick, because a decent sized pumpkin is going to have a thick stem. And then it gets thinner and usually starts to curve off to the side because the vines are kind of curly cued. And then I give it kind of a rough edge like that. Okay. This will be our ground down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it some grass marks. I'm not going to, don't do this. Don't put it right underneath and go like this. That just doesn't look good. You're in 3rd grade. We're past that point. The grass should actually go behind the pumpkin. Got a little too high there, too low. That way it looks like the pumpkin's actually sitting on the ground. A big mistake that people have is they'll just put the ground right underneath. Well, technically it looks like the pumpkin's floating behind the ground, not actually sitting on the ground. Okay, so this part's going to take you probably a little while to get kind of squared away for some of you. The next thing we're going to do is you're going to need your colored pencils, and we're going to focus on with regular orange. Please make sure you grab regular orange. You could do this possibly with the red orange, but you're best off with just regular orange. And you want it to be fairly sharpened. Mine's been fairly sharpened. And you're going to hold it a little bit different than normal. Most of us hold a pencil like this. This is how we were taught in kindergarten, 1st grade to hold a pencil. And this is great for drawing lines and basic coloring. But if we hold it back here towards the back of the colored pencil, even if it's a shorter colored pencil, like my yellow's getting kind of shorter, I would still hold it back there. This allows me to color a space lightly. Yes, technically I could color it lightly this way, but this forces me to color lightly because it's really hard for me to press down on the tip. So it makes it easier for me to do a light layer of color. This is something you should probably try and give it a practice. It is awkward at first. I will guarantee it will feel weird for some of you. When I first learned to do it this way, I hated it, but now it just makes things so much easier now that I'm used to it and can do it pretty easily. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to give the pumpkin body a light layer of orange. So now that we have our light layer to work on, we need to figure out where our light source is. Now, if this is on the ground, I'm going to have this as a night picture, and we're going to have the moon as the light source. Now, in order to get this to brighten up, we're going to need to add a color. In this particular case, it is going to be yellow that we're going to use to brighten it up. So the moon is going to be above. In fact, I think I'm going to have the moon being off the picture a little bit, but its light will still be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to color over the top of the orange here. Now I'm going to push a little bit harder so that it's a bit more solid, but if you notice, it's making like this yellow-orange color. And it's only going to be at the top of the pumpkin. Not the very, very edge, but I don't know, say 2 to 3 finger spaces down from the top of the pumpkin. And what's nice about this is because of the way pumpkins are, Your line does not have to be perfectly even on the cutoff because pumpkins are not 100% smooth. They actually have a little bit more variety in the bumps and stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be 100% smooth. There's not going to be a straight line there. That would look, honestly, kind of odd if there was a straight line there. Now notice though that all my coloring marks are going all the same direction. I'm not crisscrossing them because that's really not going to help the blending out, and it's really not going to help the overall look of the picture. This is as far as I need you to get for next week. A couple things. Make sure that as you're drawing that it is huge, takes up a ton of space. If you notice it's going off the page, almost went off the top, did go off the side, and I could have made it go off this side. Okay, so it should be really, really big. Okay, that you have that oval in the middle, then one on the side, like this. Okay. Then you're very lightly taking an orange and filling this in. Notice that my coloring marks are all going the same way. Okay, they're going up and down. On a pumpkin, it does not make sense to go side to side at all. It should be going up and down. And then I did the same thing with the yellow, and it's about 2 to 3 finger spaces. And it should roughly be kind of even across the line, but as you can see, it does not need to be perfectly even, because perfectly even would honestly look weird. Okay, so that's where I need you to be. Next week we'll focus on adding our next layers in and getting some shadow work in, and then working on the background, because the background's pretty easy. So we will wrap this up next week. Take a snapshot of this, upload it to Google Classroom for me so I can take a quick look at it, and I will see you next week.